Hi, everyone. It's Lydia with the Global Travel Junkie podcast and YouTube channel. And today I'm excited to introduce you to our next guest. I'm sitting here with Michelle Steinhardt with the Trav Nav. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Lydia. How are you?
I'm good. It's so good to see you. I look forward to getting to know you better and to learn more about the Trav Nav. But before we do that, just wanted to check in with you. How's the weather in wherever you're at? Where are you at?
I'm in Los Angeles, California.
Yes,
And
pretty.
unfortunately, today it's pretty gloomy. I wish it was a little sunnier, to be honest.
Yeah, more like the picture behind you, right? Isn't that gorgeous?
For sure, the weather at the Enchantment Resort in Sedona was spectacular. Here in Los
Yes.
Angeles, not as great.
Yeah, and actually today here where I'm at in Texas, it's supposed to rain. So we'll see how the internet goes. Hopefully it's not going to get affected by the weather. But to get us started, I always, since I don't know you very well, I always like to ask my guests to introduce themselves and tell something a little more personal about yourself and what you've been up to up until now.
Sure. So I'm the founder of the Trav Nav, but before I started my travel blog, I was a lawyer. I was a litigator for over 15 years. So day in, day out, I was in courthouses. I was litigating. I was, fighting with the other side. And after some time of doing that, I decided that I was ready for a change. I had always loved to travel, even since I was a kid. I did as much as I could to find ways to travel, to get out, and to explore. And it's always been a passion of mine to see and experience new culture. So I'm really excited to be here and to talk more with you about travel.
That's awesome. Well, that is so interesting. You went from lawyer and even litigator, because there's a lot of lawyers that don't ever step foot in a courtroom. So that's pretty amazing that you were doing that. But I bet it was stressful for sure.
It definitely was stressful. And I decided after talking with my husband at some point that it was time for me to make a change. And so in 2019, I ended up leaving the job I had been at for over 12 years. I love the people that I was working with, but for me, I was definitely ready for a change.
Yes, that's great. Well, how exciting. You had told me either offline or before that you had just quit that job and decided to start the Trav Nav. Tell us a little bit more about that experience, that process in building up the Trav Nav.
Sure. So it was definitely a unique process for me in that I had never written a travel blog before. I had never written an article. So everything was completely new. It was an entirely new experience for me. But I needed something to do once I left my job. And I wanted to find a way, a positive way, to channel that new time and energy that I had. And since I always loved traveling and I loved writing, I figured what better way than to combine the two of those things. I had no idea what I was in for, though. For your audience members who don't know, there is a lot of time and effort it takes to start and to continue to have a travel blog, similar to, I'm sure, what it is like for you to have a podcast.
Absolutely.
And so it was a lot of work. I had to learn how to use things like WordPress. I had to learn to marketing. I had all of these new and different types of blog tools that I had to use. So it was definitely a challenge, but it's been a labor of love, and it's been just a terrific thing that I've been doing, and I can't wait to keep going with it.
I love that. And you're right. It's very similar to what I'm doing with my media. Your media just happens to be writing and presenting on a web internet interface, whereas I'm doing it through interviews and through conversation. And it's exactly the same thing because I got to write up all the descriptions and put all the links in and do all that good stuff. So it's a lot of work. This is not easy for sure, right?
It's not, but I'm glad that we can share our passion with each other and with everyone else who's watching.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about the Trav Nav. You were sharing with me earlier that you've even won some awards.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate in that my travel blog has been doing really well. So, the Trav Nav is a luxury travel blog for active travelers, just the way that I generally tend to travel. And since 2021, the Trav Nav has been listed on FeedSpot's top 100 luxury blogs to follow, which was super exciting for me. And it's just been just one of the few awards that I've won since that time. So I'm
That
really
is
proud of that.
that is a huge accomplishment. Congratulations. So prior to us scheduling this, we were picking one of the amazing luxury places that you'd been to, and we've selected the I think it's called Enchantment Resort in Sedona, Arizona. So will you introduce us to and take us on your journey of your experience with the Enchantment Resort?
Sure, I'd love to. The Enchantment Resort was one of my favorite properties that I visited in the United States. And for me, what drove me to select the Enchantment Resort initially and to decide to visit Sedona is I love hiking. And so I wanted to be in a beautiful place where I could get outside and just really enjoy the outdoors, but I wanted a nice place to lay my head at night. So after some research, we selected the Enchantment Resort. And so my husband and I, we went in the winter and we drove up from Los Angeles. So it was about an 8-hour drive. And I will not lie, the drive was kind of boring, but at the same time, it was a very easy drive. It's very flat. So it was one of the easiest road trips that we've done in that regard. But what was really exciting is that once we pulled up to the Enchantment Resort, we pulled through the guard gate and we started to drive on the private road up to the resort. You could really see the canyon that the Enchantment Resort is nestled in. And as you can see behind me, this is a picture that I took from high above the Enchantment Resort. And you can just see how beautiful the red rocks are, the different colors. And the resort itself is in the valley of the canyon. So when you look to your right or to your left, you will see the canyon surrounding you, which makes it incredibly special.
Wow. So when you take us up the driveway and you arrived at the facility, and what happened?
So as we drove up, you passed a bunch of low-lying buildings, which includes their spa. It includes the trail house, which I'm sure we'll get to a little later in the podcast. And then you drive past some of the accommodations. And as we drove up, we were greeted by the valets. And I have to tell you, they were some of the nicest valets that I've ever come across. And as soon as we opened our door and they greeted us, I knew we were in for an amazing stay. They were so professional, such nice people, and it just set the tone for the rest of our vacation.
Thank you. That's awesome. I love that experience. And give us an idea of about how many rooms or how many people, like, is this big or is it boutique? Is it what's the experience? It's not a building in the middle of a canyon, right? It's not a tall Trump Tower in the middle of a canyon. Give us a visual of the grounds.
Sure, it is the exact opposite of what you described. So the resort, although large, has about 200 and I think it's 18 guest rooms. You would never know that from being on the property. It's a very large, sprawling property with lots of low-lying buildings. So I think the highest building is 2 stories, and that makes it great because you can walk around the property and you feel as though you're in an open space. You never feel confined. You know, a lot of properties these days are towers. And so you have to get in an elevator, you have to walk down a dark corridor. That's never the case at the Enchantment Resort. You're always out in the open. And the benefit of that is while you're walking to your room, you have these incredible views around you, no matter where you look. And it's a wonderful way to get to and from your car, to and from, your dinner reservation. It just enhances your experience.
That brings to mind me asking you, since you're so in like a nature environment, did you see any wildlife or is there any wildlife on the property?
We did. So there's 2 different types of wildlife we saw while we were at the Enchantment Resort. Almost every day we saw a deer, which was neat. There's a a green area that runs along the private drive. And so you would see them sporadically through the day, just kind of hanging out, maybe eating some grass and then running along. And then we also saw what I'm going to call they're javelinas, and I might be pronouncing it wrong, but they're in the pig family. So they're not potbelly pigs, but they're certainly not like pigs you'd see at a fair. They're these grayish looking pigs. They're super cute.
They're almost like boars, right? Aren't they a little bit like a boar?
Yeah, they resemble more like they resemble more of a boar, but they're smaller, like almost like a potbelly pig, but a little bit larger. And so they kind of like roam in packs, and they're not intimidating or anything, but it's just kind of cool to see that the wildlife is able to come into the resort and hang out. And it's just like another memorable experience that you have, while you're just kind of meandering the property.
Yeah. So I'm from Texas, and we're really close to the border, and we know that animal, and it's a silent J. So it's javelina. It's a Mexican. It's a Spanish. I mean, I think it's a Mexican animal and a Spanish name. So I think the J is more of a soft J, like javelina. So yeah, I know what those are. We have them down in South Texas a lot. So yeah. Any other wildlife that you saw? I know this was December, so whatever's getting out in the cold, right?
Yeah, those were the only two types of wildlife we saw while we were on grounds, and actually in Sedona. We didn't see any other wildlife. It was pretty cold while we were there. The mornings were the high 30s, and then by the afternoon it got better. But since we started a lot of our hikes in the morning, we had definitely had to gear up, and I was wearing heavy jackets and beanies and base layers, but it was all worth it.
That's a good segue. Let me ask you about what the activity levels were that y'all participated in, and then maybe share some that they had on property that maybe y'all didn't get an opportunity to participate in.
Yeah, sure. So there are a lot of different activities. Like I mentioned, for us, the main draw was hiking, and I loved being able to hike all around Sedona. There's so many different trails. You'll never be able to fit all of them in your first visit, which is great because gives you a reason to come back for more. But the Enchantment Resort is in Boynton Canyon. And out the back of Boynton Canyon, there's two popular hikes. It's the Boynton Canyon hike, and then there's an offshoot to what's called the Subway Cave. And we did the Subway Cave at sunrise. So we left a little bit before sunrise. It was dark. I needed a headlamp when we left our room for the day. And we just walked to the back of the resort, out the gate, down the canyon until we got to our turnoff, and then ended up going over to Subway Cave. And if your visitors look it up, it is basically when you're in the back of the cave and you look forward, it looks like a subway tunnel. And at sunrise, when the sun hits the tunnel, it just sparkles inside the tunnel. And it's a beautiful, beautiful backdrop and a great way to start your day. I will say the hike to get into the cave can be a little intense, so it's not for the faint of heart. But it is definitely well worth just getting up to that point to see what it looks like. Okay. And so, yeah, so hiking was great for us. We did a ton of hiking. One of the reasons why people like to stay at the Enchantment Resort is because they're close to a lot of famous hiking, like Devil's Bridge, which is another major Instagrammable spot that we did when we were at sunrise. So that was great. But when you're talking about being on property, there's also a ton of great activities. We did yoga one morning, which was really nice. It was like a nice way to kind of stretch from all the hiking that we've been doing. So they had a great yoga teacher for us. They have an on-site spa. It's called Miyamo. And I didn't get a chance to go to the spa. There was some construction going on, but it is world renowned. People travel from all over the world to go to this particular spa. And they have all these great different treatments that one day I would definitely like to try. They have like chakra balancing and sound healing, inner quest for clarity and peace. So they're just some very unique options for spa treatments that are there.
It sounds like things we all need, right?
Things are great to do. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask to continue. Were there some more activities that they had available for y'all?
Yeah, so there's a large pool on site and a hot tub. And so for us, one day it was snowing, so we ended up going in the hot tub while it was snowing. So the snowflakes were falling all around, and we got to relax in the hot tub. So that was really neat. And then they have other activities that we didn't get a chance to do, things like a paint and sip. Basically, they'll set up an art class for you and beautiful surroundings around Red Rocks. In the winter, there's ice skating for kids. In the summer, they have lawn games. They have a labyrinth walk. There's golf nearby. There's just so many things to do while you're on property. And one of the things that I was a huge fan of, and I mentioned it in the beginning, is they have what's called the Trail House, and it's a building up near the front of the resort. And you walk in, and there's a store where you can buy any kind of gear that you need for the day. But what's also great is they have these hiking and mountain biking folks who run the trail house. And so they can give you all these insider tips and tricks for the different trails that are nearby. They have an architectural 3D in-person like display on a table that kind of shows like the contours of the nearby areas. So it's this great overall kind of aerial view that you can use to kind of pick where you want to go. The folks there are extremely knowledgeable, and I found it to be really helpful and something that set the Enchantment Resort apart from some of the other resorts.
One of the things most people know about Sedona is that it has some kind of, they're called vortexes or energy centers. Did they have any activities with with that related, or the night sky or anything like that?
They did. So for your listeners who aren't familiar, you and I both are, but I thought maybe I could just kind of describe what the vortexes are. So the vortexes are energy that comes up, and it can have effects on your physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. The best way someone described it to me when we were in Sedona was explaining that there's this electromagnetic energy that swirls around, and as that energy gets released, it can have an impact on meditation, self-discovery, and assist with spiritual growth. And the Enchantment Resort is located in Boynton Canyon, and that is one of the areas in which there is a vortex. And because of that, the spa is known to try to use that energy in some of the different treatments that they offer. And so that's one of the great things that you can do. They're really mind and body well-being forward at the spa. And then in Sedona in general, there's a lot of other places where you can experience the vortexes. So Gary and I, my husband, we went out one day to Cathedral Rocks. Have you been there before?
Yeah, I have.
So we went out to Cathedral Rock, and we took a yoga class there as well. And for me, during the yoga class, I felt this overwhelming sense of calm that I don't feel as much, I will say. And so it was great just to be able, yeah, exactly. There's a lot going on over here. And so during that yoga class, it was just great to have this very calming sense of inner peace while we were doing it. And the Cathedral Rocks is also one of the vortexes. So even if you're at Boynton Canyon, you can get out into some of the other areas as well, like Cathedral Rocks and Bell Rock and Airport Mesa, to kind of see how you feel at these different places.
That's awesome. I was looking at the website before I met you, after you introduced it to me, and I noticed they had some like fire pits. So tell us a little bit about the nightlife. What happens in the evenings?
Sure. So at night they have some fire pits, so you can head into one of the bars, and you can order a cocktail, and you can sit outside, or you could sit at one of the bars. We ended up having dinner one night at Tiagavo. Tigavo, I think is how you pronounce it, and forgive me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. And we sat at the bar one night, and it was great. They have a craft cocktail menu, so it's very farm to table. The prickly pear is very big in Sedona, and so they make some of their cocktails with the prickly pear. I have to say, I'm not a fan, but I think a lot of other people are, since it's in a lot of different drinks that you can have. But what's one of the things that stuck with me is while we were having cocktails and waiting for our dinner, the sun was setting. And one of the most incredible views that we saw while we were in Sedona is as the sun sets and you're sitting in the restaurant and you can look back at the Red Rocks, because the restaurants have all floor to ceiling windows. And as you look back and the sun hits the Red Rocks, it actually looks like the rocks are turning from red to gold. I mean, so gold that you would think you were like, in terms of that you were in the times of the gold rush era, because it is that gold color is so vibrant and it's so pretty. And so I feel like we were really fortunate enough to be able to see, you know, kind of what was happening at sunset. So that was one of the experiences that was, you know, special and memorable for us.
Yeah. Didn't you tell me at another conversation time that they brought out astronomers and had the telescopes or something? Tell us about that experience.
So one of the things that the Enchantment Resort does for its guests, at least at the time I stayed there, is they offer this free experience, which is really nice. And what they do is they bring astronomers out who have really high-powered telescopes. So they actually drive the telescopes out to the back of the resort, into the end of Boynton Canyon where the resort is. And it's very dark back there, which is great because that helps. There's no light pollution, so it doesn't impede your ability to see the constellations and the planets. And they set up multiple telescopes for us, and you just kind of float from one telescope to the next to see different planets, different constellations. And because the night sky, the night we did it, was so clear, we were able to see rings of Saturn. We saw Mars. It was really, really special. You could see like the different like contours of the moon. Things that you wouldn't, at least I personally have not seen by myself, but with the assistance of the people that they had on staff and the high-powered telescopes, it was a really cool experience that the Enchantment Resort offers its guests.
Yeah, that's great. When I'm just going to jump back a question. When we were talking about the trail house, I don't remember if you shared whether or not they have help, like tour guides. Do they have trail guides or something? Did I read that or something?
Yeah, you're right. They do. So Gary and I, when we were hiking, we opted to do the hiking by ourselves. But if you prefer, the Enchantment Resort will hook you up with one of their guides, and they'll take you hiking. They can take you mountain biking. They can take you rock climbing. So there's all these different options based upon kind of your level of interest and your level of experience. And Sedona is known for all of those things. We actually saw when we were doing the Devil's Bridge on our way out, we saw a group of people who were getting ready for their mountain biking adventure. You could see that I think they were probably beginners, and so they were kind of all riding around like in a circle on a fire road, just kind of getting their feet wet as to see whether or not it was something they were going to be able to do. And it definitely was, because it was a fire road. So I think that's a pretty easy way of getting started when you're talking about mountain biking. But the trail guides are extremely knowledgeable. And so even if you're not planning on using them to take you out on a private guide, just stopping in and talking to those folks is a huge benefit. And they have a wealth of information that they can share with you.
That's great. Let's shift gears a little bit. You mentioned the bars, and I'm not sure if you shared with us all the different types of dining experiences. Do you remember some of those and what that was like for you, just to help those who are foodies out there get excited about the dining on property?
Sure. So there are several different restaurants on property, and they're all the ones that we ate at were really good. We tried to vary up where we ate at the hotel and in Sedona, because Sedona, for those of you who haven't been, is a foodie mecca. The food in Sedona is phenomenal. I don't know where all their chefs are trained, but we never had a bad meal. Every meal we had was fantastic. We ate it on property a couple times. So we ate at the Tigavo, where we had drinks at the bar, and then we had dinner. We had this incredible guacamole. I'm a huge avocado toast and guacamole person. So I remember how delicious the guacamole was. It was It was so big, I actually didn't even finish it. And that's
says a lot.
Unlike me. Yeah. that's how big the dish was. And so we sat at the bar. So it was kind of a very casual dinner we had at the bar. But if you sit at the restaurant, it's a little fancier. And then they also have, and I'm sure butcher this name as well. It's the Chia Chai restaurant where we had breakfast. And what I liked about the restaurant, in addition to the food being great, is again, those floor to ceiling windows. So in the morning light, you're able to take advantage of the views of all the red rocks around you. And so you just start your day going from your hotel room, just walking, down the path to the restaurants on property. And everywhere you look, you have these magnificent views. And it was one of the things that I liked best about staying at the resort. And there's a couple other restaurants at the resort as well. So there's the market, which Gary and I took advantage of a lot. So it's basically a quick service, small, like kind of grab and go type restaurant. And so when we were hiking, we'd pick up like a muffin or a croissant or something real quick that we could throw in our backpack so that when we were out on trail, we had something that was better to eat than like a balance bar. So we hit up the market almost every day and tried to, get something new each day to vary it up. And then there's two other restaurants on property now. There's the Hummingbird, which is the cafe at Miyamo, which is on the other side of the private drive, but it's still behind the same gate. And the Hummingbird is the spa restaurant. And then they also have the Edge, which is on the Enchantment side, and that is the poolside restaurant. So they have a lot of different restaurants, a lot of different options. And I have one pro tip for you. I was told that if you're eating on property of either Chia Chai or Tagavo, that if there's an item on one of the menus at the other restaurant, that you can order it and they'll bring it to you even though you're sitting at a different restaurant. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, they probably share the kitchen, right, together.
That's my guess. Yeah, and the restaurants are really close together. So it's probably easy for the staff to make that happen, but it's just something, another extra special thing.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Sure. You okay?
Excuse me. Oh my goodness. Hold on a second, guys. Let me take a swig.
Well, you're sipping. I'll just give you one other.
Yes, please.
One other thing that I love about the hotel is there's, in addition to all of the hiking options that are available, there's also pickleball and tennis courts. There's a fitness center. And then the concierge can arrange a whole bunch of other types of activities for you, whether you want to go hot air ballooning, golfing, helicopter tours. Those are all available.
Wow.
Yeah, so you don't have to just stay on property. You have the option to really get out and explore. You can go off-roading. There's just so many things to do in Sedona. It's really fun.
I was going to ask before I started choking, the pool, I'm interested in the pool and the water, and I know that it was winter, but was the pool heated for the winter time?
Yeah, so the pool was warm. I kind of just dipped my toe in it. We ended up just going straight to the hot tub. My muscles were a little sore from all the hiking we were doing, so we ended up just hanging out in the hot tub. But the pool was open. There's a large pool on property, and then there's a few other smaller pools that are around some of the other blocks of rooms that are accessible depending upon kind of where your hotel room is and what kind of room you reserve.
This sounds like, do you know how like many acres, like how big are we talking about as far as the whole grounds? I mean, you may not know the acreage, but just an estimate, like 3 or 4 acres or 5 acres or 10 acres or.
It's pretty large. It's all on one flat plane. So you can see from the front to the back. There are some private homes. So as you pass Miyamo and Enchantment, which are on opposite sides of the private drive that goes through the resort, then at the very back, there's a bunch of private homes as well. So it's a pretty large property, but even though it's really large, it's really easy to get around. You can drive from place to place. So we parked our car right near where our hotel room was. But if we wanted to, let's say we were feeling lazy, or if we had some impairment where it's kind of difficult for us to walk from place to place, you could get in your car and you could drive from your room to the valet stand at the main gate where all the restaurants are. It was very easy to get around.
Yeah, that's good. So I'm sitting in front, what looks like I'm sitting in a hotel room, but I'm not. But let's discuss. Is this your hotel room?
Yes, so that was the room that we stayed in. It was a casita studio. And as you can see, Lydia, she is kind of moved around a little bit so you can see there is a sitting area, which was great for us with the kind of TV in the background. There's a fireplace. And then you can see the bed that's there as well. And that's a Murphy bed. So if you want during the day, you can push it up. And then that way you have a lot more space in your room. And then on the back patio, so there's a balcony, and then from the balcony, you have a view of the red rocks that are right in front of you. And I mean, they look like they're right in front of you. So your view is pretty good. And some of the rooms even have a barbecue. So during the summer months, if you want, and you could, go to the store, and if you decide, you've got a family or you've got a bunch of friends, they can come over, relax on your patio. You can all grill together, which is really nice, and relax. And then not shown in this picture, but on the front side of the room, there's also like a little kitchenette, and there's a dining room table for you to sit at as well. So this is a pretty big size room. And then I will tell you, so in the door that's towards the back is where the bathroom is. And so there's a big bathroom back there. There was a big closet for us to be able to put all our stuff in, and then a shower, which was all modern and great for our purposes.
Has it been renovated? Like, how long has this been around? Do you know how old the property is?
I don't know how old the property is. I believe it was renovated recently, but I don't know the year. But
yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, but the hotel, what they've been able to do is they've been consistently able to keep that Southwestern theme going throughout the hotel, and it's really nice because because it's so consistent, and it's also fits with the atmosphere that you're in and kind of the town and the motif. Everything just kind of fits naturally together, which is really great.
That's wonderful. You said you were there in the winter. Do they have, I imagine, like, how I go to a ski resort and there's like a big fireplace in the lobby. Do they have fireplaces anywhere in the property for you to, besides outside, for you to warm up?
I don't remember if they had one in the lobby. I want to say they do have one in the lobby, kind of where you walk in from the valet stand. But in our room, we had a fireplace, which you can kind of see like a little bit of the light behind you. So we used our fireplace at night, which was just kind of warmed up the room a little bit. And who doesn't like a fireplace in the winter? So we used it every night. And it was cold when we were there. So, at night, the temperature dropped a lot, so we wanted to use the fireplace. And one day it actually snowed, which made it truly, truly a special experience. And when we got up in the morning and we walked through the resort, snow had dusted all of the trees. So it was like a winter wonderland. It was really beautiful.
Gosh, that does sound pretty. Plus the contrast of the white on the red rocks, that's had to be amazing to see.
It was. That contrast was really impressive. Just the natural beauty that you could see at the hotel. And even when we were out hiking, on the hiking trails, the snow didn't stick to the ground. So it didn't impede our hiking ability at all, but it did stick to all the trees and the bushes. And so everywhere you went and everywhere you looked, it was just so beautiful. It was hard to believe you were in Arizona, because when I think of Arizona, I think of heat. I don't think of snow.
I know. And I think Sedona is a little bit in the more northern part of Arizona, right? The more mountainous areas.
Yeah, it's a little bit more mountainous. You can, see all the red rocks that are behind me. And I just love visiting. It was such a beautiful place, and I really want to go back. We enjoyed it so much, and there's so much more to explore that we didn't even get a chance to do while we were there.
Yeah. Well, in wrapping up, is there anything about maybe Sedona that y'all did that I didn't ask you about, or anything you want to share about your experience in closing?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that we did that we didn't get a chance to talk a lot about is we went off-roading. And so we went out to the Broken Arrow Trail, and we actually drove it ourselves. So you'll see a lot of the pink Jeeps, which are pretty famous in Sedona. So you can hop a ride there, or you could do it yourself. So we ended up doing it ourselves, which was pretty neat. It was a little nerve-wracking at some points. Gary drove the whole time we were doing the Broken Arrow Trail, just because there are some technical aspects to it, in the sense that you have some very, very steep ups and some very, very steep downs. But it was really fun, and it was neat. And then we went out to another part of Sedona where it was more fire roads, and so I drove off-roading there. So that was really fun.
Wow.
But overall, I would just say Sedona is such a beautiful place. It's, whether you're super active or not, there's a lot of ways that you could just drive around Sedona and kind of get out of your car and see the beautiful different types of red rocks that there are and the different formations. So it's very accessible for everyone. You don't have to be as active and as adventurous as we were, but you can. And I hope to come back and visit soon. We just had such a wonderful time.
Yeah, I hope to visit there myself one day. It's definitely been exciting learning about it and all the things that they offer. And Sedona in general is a great place to visit. I've only been once, and that was like in 2013 or 2015, I think it was, when my nephew graduated from a university in Flagstaff. We drove down to Sedona. So, yeah, thank you so much for being here. And I definitely want to invite you back if you go to another luxury property and you want to tell us all the exciting things that you did at another location. You're welcome back. And we always want to welcome the Trav Nav for, experiences. And before we go, why don't you share with everyone how they can find you, where they can follow you, how they can connect with you? Let's let everybody know about that.
Oh, thanks so much, Lydia. It's been a real pleasure talking with you today. It's been super fun. I just love talking about travel, so I'd love to come back. And if anyone's interested, you can find my website. It's www.thetravnav.com. And you can find me on all my social media travels at the Trav Nav. So it's pretty easy to find me. And I hope you come visit and come along for the journey as I give you more tips and tricks about amazing places to stay.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you again for being on the Global Travel Junkie podcast and helping everybody be more excited about exploring our beautiful world that we have out there.
Thank you so much, Lydia.
Bye-bye.
Bye.